If you are not yet a member of the Patreon, link is in the description. Please consider becoming a member, as you will have access to many videos you cannot find here on YouTube.
Oh yeah, Didi got a podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of Didi Got a Podcast, and of course, I'm your host Didi, or at least I think I am. Back with another episode, man. I appreciate you all for tuning in. Listen, a little bit over a month ago, I was blessed enough to feature a guy by the name of Brian the Auditor, who had seemingly conducted his own version of a Doge-style audit of TPUSA, and I posted it to YouTube, and it broke the internet, right? It was all over Twitter. Everyone was sharing it, and that's great because that is allegedly what Charlie Kirk wanted, or at least according to the so-called memo that many of us have seen. So this is a way to say at the beginning of this video, for those of you that keep saying we need a Doge-style audit, there's one that's been done. Just because TPUSA didn't call for it themselves does not mean that you get to discredit the ones that have been done. Brian was the first one to do it, or at least the first one that I saw on the internet. So we have an audit to refer to, at least to some extent, to get a better idea of what's going on or what could have been going on with the finances at TPUSA. Which brings me to my next point. Shout out to a channel called Wolves and Finances, because I believe Zach over at Wolves and Finances was maybe the second or the third person that I've seen to do a Doge style audit as well. And I also want to mention that channel to say that Wolves and Finances actually dropped a video either earlier today or yesterday, which by the way is incredible. And I don't mean this in tongue in cheek when I say that after you drop a video like what he dropped earlier today or yesterday, I would highly encourage him and anybody else who's willing to expose these sort of dealings and raise these sort of questions to get security. I'm not even joking, bro, because that video is crazy, and that video is going to be very related to the things that Brian and I are going to be discussing in today's video as we dig into the military connections and backgrounds of the McCoys, of the Kirks, of the Frantzvies, of the Covets, right? As we will find that many of their family members are high-ranking military members, which in my opinion, and you'll hear me say this in an interview, I don't believe is a coincidence, right? So before we get into the interview, I've taken too much time already. Please just hit the like button on your way in. I would really appreciate it so that this video can be shared with other people like yourself into the algorithm. Without further ado, let's get into it. All right, everybody. So on this channel, we haven't really spent a whole lot of time sort of looking into and exploring the military angle with the McCoys and the TPUSA family, as Erica Kirk would say. So Brian is now back on the channel to sort of entertain this and share with us some things that he found. So what you got, Brian?
So first, Dee, I think we should talk about why this is compelling, because sometimes if you just hear this information in a vacuum, you would think, oh, it's just a couple military family members. What's the big deal? But if you zoom out and understand why it's compelling in this repeating pattern that we see over and over again, I think it kind of strengthens why we're saying this is important. So if we take one step back, I think it was early or late 2000s, there's a book that came out called Weird Scenes Inside Laurel Canyon, a guy named Dave McGowan. And what he did was he profiled all these famous celebrities from the 60s and 70s. And by profiling, he looked into their backgrounds, he looked into their parents, their grandparents, and what he found was alarming, hence why we got a book out of it. They were all high-level military. So in other words, it wasn't like he looked into Jim Morrison's dad and he was just a private, in the Army. He was a commanding officer of Gulf of Tonkin, right? And then that pattern just kept coming up over and over again. It was high-level sergeants, high-level commanders, like the top military intelligence as well. And same with actors, by the way. It wasn't just musicians. So it ends up really painting this picture that potentially some of these people are installed through their military families, meaning whoever we think runs the world, they start to scout some of their family members and think, hey, this guy's got potential. This kid's got potential. And then they start, pushing him or her through that system. And I definitely want to make sure I'm clear here. I'm not saying that's what happened here, but what I am saying, it's notable because of all this history of this information that shows us, man, is it a strange coincidence that just some of these people shoot to the top real quick with these really deep, there's no other way to say it, like military backgrounds.
Right. And as we can, before we get into it, as we continue with this, obviously it won't be news to most people that Rob McCoy connected to the military. What's the other pastor's name? The other pastor, Frank Turek. Thank you. Frank Turek connected to the military. Erica Kirk herself connected to the military. Are you saying that what you have found that some of these people's family members some of them are high-ranking members of the military.
As in some cases, high as you can, almost as high as you can be. Like we're talking commander, admiral, and to be, I've never been in the military, so I don't remember off the top of my head like every ranking, but that's like you're in the top percent. When you're a commander, and we're going to go through some of it and just see the way the write-ups are on them. They're written up as if like it's a CEO. And let's just think about that for a second. Why this is important in a Fortune 500 company. How do you become CEO? Is it because you're the best worker? No. Why would you think of the military any different? You get to that position. Not what are you, the best shooter on the field? Not. Has anyone ever seen the movie A Few Good Men? Like this has even been depicted in movies, just how it works. I don't know. Do you know who the NYPD commissioner is right now? No. It's a Jewish woman.
So I actually do know that. I do know that.
So why I bring that up would be, isn't that the same as what I'm trying to get at with the military? Was she the best street cop?
Well, Barry Weiss.
Right. Yeah. Right. And so I don't think the military is an exception. I think it's part of that same rule. So if someone got that high, how'd they get that high? Are they connected? Did they do something? Like, it's just, it's not merit based. It's not this guy was the best. And that because it's the same as every institution. Like I said, think of where you've had jobs. I know where I've worked, the CEO wasn't the best, not even close. He's not even the smartest.
Right.
But they're the most willing, or some cases they're the most compromised. And so I kind of would hope people kind of change their view, because we've been beaten over the head with like patriotism. This can become hard to see. When he's got 800 Purple Hearts all over him, no one can question that. It's right. No, look what he did for us and protect, but it's deeper than that. Like, that's why I brought up Laurel Canyon and some of the other things, history says like, this runs very deep.
I don't know if you know this or not, but in a more recent episode of Candace Owens' podcast, she shares how there was this, she's really invested in this Fort Huachuca angle, which is this sort of military basis out there, whatever. And there's this story about how this young lady started a gym in the area. A family from the area came, visited her, invested in the gym. This family was a part of the military. Anyways, it turns out that they will later found out that this person was the owner of the gym found out that the man and the woman, the family that donated or invested in her gym, had somehow contractually found a way to take over her gym through the contracts by way of investing. They're part of the military. And her gym was a Christian gym. And they did this to sort of try to infiltrate this woman's gym. Why this is important or why it's relevant is because, first and foremost, Erica Kirk's mother is tied to this military base. But outside of that, some people have already started to suspect that that's what's happened at TPUSA, not just an infiltration by the military, but specifically an infiltration by the military to infiltrate Christian organizations, to masquerade or cosplay as these true believers when they have sinister motives. So many people have argued that they believe that this is the same thing that happened at TPUSA that happened to this woman, allegedly, that was close to the Fort Huachuca base.
And so that's really interesting. I didn't know that. But if you think about it, that connects to something we did expose in our first video, which maybe I'd recommend people to go back and watch this part because it didn't get a lot of attention. Remember the superfeed technology?
Yes.
Okay. Didn't that appear like a military intelligence and then what's her name? Lori, Erica's mother, was running the company with a few other people.
That's right.
And it was this app to try and get all these young voters to sign up for. But what's an app? That's you consenting your data. Well, who would love to have your data? The military intelligence, because then your data gets shipped off to this guy and that guy and Amazon, so I mean, and that just struck me as interesting, not to get too far on a tangent, but that part of our thing got no attention, because that was one of the things that left me with chills when I uncovered that. I'm like,
yeah. Wow. And for those of you that don't know, that didn't catch it, but there's an organization that is one of the subsidiaries or one of the organization that falls under TPUSA that have received some investments that Erica Kirk's mother, Miss Lori, is actually overseeing, which is, again, as Brian said, you have to watch the original video to understand. When you consider that or you couple that with all the other information, it just makes it a lot harder if you're TPUSA or TPUSA affiliated to argue against the potential fraud or something weird going on with this organization. But I digress.
Also, Tyler Boyer was the COO, I believe, of the company.
Yeah.
So you have that, and it's just, all I'm saying is what you just explained really ties to that. Like, there's this like military stuff just hovering around Turning Point, and it's unavoidable.
Yep.
Which why I think it leads us to what we're about to speak to today, to just give some more detail to all of that. Like these don't feel like coincidences.
Right.
Okay. All right. So I think a great place to start would be an Instagram post I found from Rob McCoy, who is Mikey McCoy's father. And that's what sent me on this trail. So Rob, I don't remember if it was Veterans Day or something. Forgive me, I don't have it right in front of me. But essentially, he made a post honoring some of his military family members. And I just went, oh, that's interesting. So what I did was I just started looking to see who these guys were, like find newspaper articles from the 30s, 40s, 50s, and just learn what did they do in the military? Were they private? Were they, high ranking? And then from there, that led me to more folks that Rob didn't mention, because now I had obituaries. And in the obituaries, it references if someone's military, meaning like even if someone's granddaughter is. So if a grandfather dies, it may say granddaughter, private so-and-so, or lieutenant so-and-so. So then of course I went and looked into that person. So I think today what we should do is just go through some of these, identify what their titles were, kind of how they were written up and explained in newspapers, and then the audience, right, can decide for themselves what they think of that information. So if it's okay with you, D, maybe we'll start from the top, which would be Mikey's grandfather, and that's Rob's father. So his name is Captain, pretty high ranking, right?
You're right.
Captain Roy Edgar McCoy. He was the commanding officer of the USS Carronade. He received a Bronze Star Medal with the Combat V, so a very, very high-ranking medal for his work in Vietnam. And you're going to love this, and I say that sarcastically. He was praised for killing over 2,000 people, 2189, and he destroyed over 13,000 structures, and that's viewed as a positive.
Is that common? Do you know if that's common in the military for them to say you are much more revered based on the additional number of bodies that you've been?
I didn't think it was a video game. I didn't think we're playing Halo,
right,
or Call of Duty or one of these games, but apparently we are.
Wow.
Because
do you know where, or it's total amongst this entire time in the military? I'm assuming.
Well, okay. So to be clear, it's the way they do it is by the division that you oversee. Okay. So that doesn't necessarily mean he himself,
but
you know, in a division. But I have no idea. I don't know if he killed 5 of those people, if he killed 0,
all right,
or we don't know, or if he killed all of them.
But he played a role. He helped call shots and participate. Right.
It's very clear his division, and that's why he was recognized. And 13,000 structures. You know how hard that is to destroy 13,000 structures? Like, to me, he's dropping bombs, right?
Jeez.
And was it bad guys? I suspect civilians. And
I think casualties is it comes with war. So definitely,
right? So that, to me, that makes it worse. Not that killing is bad regardless, but when it's potentially civilians, but nonetheless, he gets a bunch of these awards. And then, according to his obituary, he is the assistant chief of staff for psychological warfare. And from what I can tell, they didn't really go any deeper on that. So I don't think it's safe to speculate, only because I have no idea. Like, if you'd like, I can research more, but just, coming up to this video, I really didn't see much as to, like, what was his day-to-day? Okay, you're the chief of staff of psychological warfare, which is already crazy. But, like, what do you do between, and I don't know.
Right. What does that mean? What does that look like?
What's a day in the life? Are you just pushing pencil at the office? Or, remember, we had MK Ultra. We had a lot of stuff going on in the 50s and the 60s. I don't know. Was he in that? Was he not?
Right.
We don't know. And I'm just looking at, that same newspaper article that I was talking about, where they just list all the things he did. Here it says he destroyed over 1,000 weapons. Some other thing called the Destroyer USS. He was also Cambodia. He was involved into. So, his title's captain. So that's a sign this is not a low ranking person. It mentioned his division. So that means, right, he's like a CEO type figure if he has a division, and then he's the one that gets credit for what happens within the division, and then he gets the award. So that's pretty much it for him. And then I think he has either an uncle or someone, but then there's another guy with the same name but different middle name, Roy Everett McCoy. Might have been his uncle or cousin. I have to double check, but it's definitely.
And his name is also Roy?
Roy, but it's Roy Everett, whereas this one was Roy Edgar.
Right.
So we have Roy Edgar was the captain that we just covered. Then there's Roy Everett. Roy Everett was a Navy lieutenant commander. He ends up dying at 86. And I found his obituary. And he served in both World Wars. He was a member of the Service Club of Indianapolis, veteran of Foreign Affairs, a Scottish Rite. I found interesting.
He's a Freemason?
Well, it doesn't say Freemason. It just says Scottish Rite. They left out the word Freemason. But
so it's he served in World War I and II, Scottish Rite.
It says both world wars. So yeah, I assume that means World War One, unless there was like a Korean War they're considering or something after. But it just says he served in both world wars. He was a member of this service club. He was a member of Veterans of Foreign Affairs Post 1587, comma, Scottish Rite, and the English Speaking Union. And that's from his obituary.
Okay. Let me see. All right. And he's the uncle of Mikey McCoy. So the brother of Roy
No,
McCoy.
he's much higher. He's much older than to be uncle. Maybe like grand uncle. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because he was related to the guy we just covered before, the Roy Edgar. So it gets a little confusing because they have the same names. I think he might be the captain's uncle or the captain's cousin, something like that.
Right. Very interesting. I'm gonna have to look into that. Okay.
But yeah, that Scottish Rite jumped out to me. And if we wanted to maybe recover this in another video, we could go back and I could go through just more articles on him or more, if there's an appetite to learn more about these guys.
For sure.
But in the interest of time, I tried to just get the high points, So then we have Rob's godfather, and his name was Admiral Robert Early. His last name is spelled Erly. He spent 21 months in Portugal as a NATO commander. He then
Wait, who? Who again?
His name is Admiral Robert Early, and the last name is spelled Erly. This is Rob's godfather. So he spent 27 months in Portugal as NATO commander. Now, if you know anything about NATO, that's a very high-ranking position, right? NATO is essentially the Western alliance to allegedly protect Western countries against war, right? So if a country touches a NATO country, every country's supposed to jump in and destroy them. So you're getting pretty high up to be a NATO commander. And then after that, he became a Navy Rear Admiral in 1967. And then in 1974, he retired. So he also pretty high ranking. And this came directly from, I think it was his obituary. I got this as well. And it just talks more about what he did in the military. Started in 1937, quickly advanced, got all these high ranking positions. Then, like I said, in 1974, he got out. So basically, I guess he was in from 37 to 74. So long military career, right? This is a guy that's not just, joined for 4 years and got out. And again, that's Rob's godfather, Admiral Robert Early. Then we have Rob's father-in-law. So it's not just directly on his side. Now his wife has connections. So Rob's father-in-law is Admiral Richard Fowler.
What's up with all these R's? He's
hard,
Richard,
right?
Rob, Roy.
You think it was done to confuse us?
Man, I don't know.
Confusing. Even as I was taking notes, I was getting lost in my own. The first two guys had the same name.
Right.
Except one was a different middle name. So trust me, this wasn't that easy to untangle because you have all these names and everything. But anyway.
So the father-in-law's name is Richard. What's his last name?
Fowler, Fowler. And he was also an admiral. So based on the articles, that's how he's titled, Admiral Richard Fowler. Similar to the guy we just talked about, Robert Early, Fowler retired from the Navy in 1974. In 1971, a few years prior, he received the National Award of Vietnam, which is the second highest of Vietnam's National Order decorations. So second highest, he's an admiral. This is a high up guy, not a guy that's out in the fields, not a guy that was in ROTC and then just infantry for a couple years. I have a picture of him we can show. You can see all the pins and everything he's got on his uniform. So very, very high up. And I'm just reviewing something to see if there's anything else. Yeah, so just for him, a lot of it is around decorations of his work during the Vietnam War. And again, I want to emphasize the one award he got was the second highest of Vietnam's national orders. And that's straight from the newspaper article from the day he was given the award. One of the local papers did a write-up covering it. And that's Rob's father-in-law, Richard Fowler.
Okay.
Then we have Mikey McCoy's cousin. And this cousin is the grandson of the first guy we talked about, Captain Roy Edgar McCoy. He's a lieutenant commander named Sam Blair, Blair. He's Navy SEAL lieutenant commander. So I'm sure you've noticed the same pattern I've noticed so far. Are any of these low-ranking people?
No, the lieutenants and admirals and captains.
Yeah. So I don't feel like that's something you just dismiss because I don't know, maybe they love America so much and that's how this happened, but it's...
a lot of people love America, but a lot of people can love America without being high ranking. A lot of people love America in the military, but that don't mean that you or somebody that in your family, let alone 4, 5, 6 members, are all high ranking members. And what comes with that? What comes with being a high ranking military member? I would imagine as somebody who's never been in the military, so I don't mean to speak as if I'm an expert. Typically what I would imagine comes with that is intelligence, information.
Yeah, like we said earlier, I can't imagine it's only based on who's the best like troop, who's the best soldier. Think how
Right.
many soldiers there are. How would you even figure out like who that and what would it be based on? So it's got to be based on something else. Even if let's even say it is merit, that is also just strange that they're just in the lucky family where they're all the best troops and best that they rose to the top.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Trying to give the benefit of the doubt, but this becomes overwhelming when you just keep seeing these titles. And then we have one more. His name is Stuart Blair. It could be a cousin. I'm not sure, but because they had the same last name, I thought it might be the guy we just talked about, Sam Blair's brother, but maybe it's cousin or whatever. I'm not sure, but he's also a captain, according to what I found. So the way he's worded is Captain Stuart Blair.
Were you able to see a picture of what he looked like? Because I'm wondering, was he younger? Was he older? Do we have his age?
So these are Mikey's cousins. So I don't remember the age right in front of me, but these are not like all the previous guys who, were all dead because now they'd be over 100 years old.
Right.
These are more modern military guys.
Okay.
So maybe 40s, but I don't have the exact age in front of me, so don't hold me to it. But I can probably find pictures from articles because everything, like I said, just came from newspapers.com. I just went to the newspapers and looked for articles where they were covered. And so this does it for the McCoys. I don't know if you want to digest some of this or just move on. I mean, I feel like it's a lot to digest for me, at least.
I just looked up a picture. I mean, of course, there's people with the same names, but there's somebody here there's a lieutenant. I'm going to look it up. I'll show you what I'm looking at. This person right here, Lieutenant Colonel. Okay, this is a different one. Stuart Blair is what we were looking for. This is Blair Stewart. So this is not the same person.
Yeah, and, like I said, from what I saw, it was listed as Mikey's cousin. So that.
Right, this is an older person, I see.
Yeah, like 30s, 40s, 20, like it would be like a more modern.
Yeah.
And I can go back to the LinkedIn. Some of it I was able to find on LinkedIn, but then when now I don't know if you know, people can see when you look at their LinkedIn, so then they can.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So now I'm running into all this trouble where I should have taken screenshots, then I can't get back on the LinkedIn.
Right.
So, and that probably didn't help that your first video we did went viral because maybe people are knowing, I don't know if they know my name or something. So,
right.
Yeah, but for some of these, I did try to cross-reference with LinkedIn, and that was how I felt pretty confident that these are the titles, these are the names.
So far we have grandpa, uncle, NATO commander, father-in-law, cousin of Mikey McCoy, two cousins of Mikey McCoy. Now the NATO commander who retired in 1974, Robert Early, what was his relation?
That's Rob's godfather, and that was the Rob. Yeah, godfather. So maybe a family friend. Yeah, I don't know.
All right. And what I would wonder is, and this may not even be hard to figure out, is Frank Turek and Rob McCoy's connection, because I don't know if you know this, but it's since come out that Rob McCoy, apparently after the Candace Owens Erica Kirk meeting, it was revealed that Rob McCoy actually does not work for TPUSA Faith.
I did hear that.
Yeah, apparently I guess he's just, I don't know what that means though. Like, is he just over it, or because my understanding is he's affiliated. I know he's more than just quote unquote America's pastor, Charlie's pastor. My understanding is that he has some sort of dealings within TPUS Faith. So now I'm confused, And
I could be wrong, but at one point, wasn't his name on the TPUSA Faith website?
Right. And the
now we're going
Wikipedia page, and they said it was only added, one of them, whether it was the website or the Wikipedia page, I believe it was the Wikipedia page, was added after the Charlie Kirk incident, only after. His name was added.
That feels weird. I mean,
and I also wonder what the connection is between Lori Frantvie, Erica Kirk's mother, Rob McCoy, Frank Turek, and even potentially Charlie Kirk's parents, because Charlie Kirk's parents were I don't think they were, I don't know if his dad was military, but his dad was involved with military figures because he helped build the Trump Tower.
You want to hear something interesting? And I could send you the picture after.
Okay.
Would Charlie Kirk had like a unique looking head? Or did that jump out to you? Do you think Charlie Kirk just kind of had like a unique looking head?
I'm going to say yes, but the reason I'm saying yes would be different. Like, because based on my research, I will say yes, because his head shape is similar to a couple of other people I've covered, including the governor of Florida. For those of you that don't know, I made a video a while ago of, there was a governor of Florida some years ago, back in I think the 60s, or maybe a little bit later. He married this woman named Erica.
Oh, the Control-Alt guy, the video he did showing that, remember?
Yes.
You're getting
yes.
Yep.
He married a woman named Erica,
which
means by default her name was Erica Kirk, and she
looks like her. Yeah.
Looks like her. Yeah. And Charlie Kirk's head shape, anyways, Charlie Kirk's head shape reminded me of the governor's head shape. So that's the reason why it's interesting to me.
The reason why I brought it up, I went down and tracked down the yearbooks from Erica's father, Kent
Frantvie, yeah.
he for some reason also has that unique head.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe just coincidence, but he's got kind of this like just South Park looking head, and I don't know.
That's literally how I would describe it.
I
in
was
South
just
Park.
like,
That's so funny because
you
that's
know,
so true.
it's just unique. So unique things jump out to me because it's unique, right? Not a lot of people have a South Park head, and now Erica's father has one, and so did Charlie. And I was just like, and I don't know if you know this, Erica's father, interestingly, where he grew up and where he spent a lot of his time, only an hour away from where they tell us Charlie was in Illinois.
Really?
Don't quote me on that, but when I was looking at the year, that's where the school was. And that, so he wasn't like in Arizona. It was this, I don't have it in front of me. I wish I did now that I opened my mouth, but it was somewhere in Illinois.
When you get the chance, if you can find that photo of Ken Fransby, send it over to me because I haven't been able to find many photos of him.
You won't. That's why I went to the yearbooks because I do this, I do research. I know how to hunt this stuff down. So one of the first things I do is I go to yearbooks and I just search for Kent through the yearbooks. And then before you know it, you get a hit.
Interesting.
Could it be a different Kent? Of course, someone could always say that, but it doesn't appear that way. Things appear, and it's the same middle initial. I believe his name is Kent R. Fransby, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm pretty sure it's Kent R. as well. So the birth date matches, everything. Yeah, I'm not saying he looks exactly like Charlie. All I'm saying is it just caught me as, that's interesting. He kind of has that same head,
right?
Kind of that same mouth. Yeah. So I was like, I don't know, but anyway, I'm trying to think. Oh, I was just thinking I wanted to ask you. I didn't know if you wanted to, because you were mentioning about Frank Turek, if you wanted to pull up that tweet quick, just so the audience knows what we're talking about. I believe his name was Project Constitution, laid out a long tweet about Frank Turek's military connections.
Oh, yeah. Let me see if I can pull that up.
And so I just think, rather than talk about it, maybe we can have the audience see it so they know where we got this from. Because this is not my information when it comes to Frank.
Yeah, there we go. I'm like, let me see if I can pull it up.
I thought it was really interesting what he uncovered. And it ties right into our conversation here.
Here it is. Is it the one here by the sun?
I believe so. Let me
go back to the beginning.
Let me double check.
Says here, bombshell, Frank Turek's son, top brass in military, won at Joint Chiefs linked to Charlie Kirk Fort Huachuca meeting, ? I just received an explosive tip from This Authentic about Frank Turek's son. For context, Frank Turek, the Christian apologist and close friend of Charlie Kirk, who was on stage with him doing the pow-powing, has come under intense scrutiny. Critics point to his seemingly scripted and inconsistent retellings of the events, including a FaceTime claim with his family that hasn't withstood verification, as well as his calm demeanor amid the chaos, fueling theories that he might be part of a larger psyop or cover-up. This is especially damning given Candace Owens' assertion that Charlie Kirk's assassination was a sophisticated military operation. Well, it turns out Frank Turek isn't just former military himself. He served 8 years in the U.S. Navy as naval flight officer and aviator with deployments to the Pacific, Indian Ocean, and Persian Gulf, roles that often involved intelligence and electronic warfare components. His entire family is steeped in high-level military connections. There it is. His son, Frank Zachary III, age 37, is a deputy division chief at the Joint Chiefs of Staff and a career U.S. Air Force officer. Roles include Chief of ISR Force Enhancement Cell and a Director of Operations and more. The guy lives in D.C.'s backyard and could easily have hopped on that ghosted SAM 702 flight out of Andrews AFB on September the 8th. That gets a little bit into speculation. Yes, why does this matter? Candace's eyewitness Mitch Snow spotted a restricted high-level meeting at Fort Huachuca's Intel Hub on September 9th, hours before Charlie was executed. She called it top brass, and now we have a direct line to the Joint Chiefs via Turek's son. Coincidence, or was his family in on the PSYOP? Add to the bizarre link, Tyler Robinson's aunt, his mom's sister, Caroline Elizabeth Cox, is tied to the Tureks via family records. What?
How about that?
What? This the Pow family mingling with the military. What? I didn't know that. That's crazy. And here's the video here. Let's see what it shows. Relatives. What? I want this to be confirmed or denied. I want to know if that's true.
Yeah, and I was able to look into on my own, but
because I shared today that there's a high chance, Brian, that the guy who took the SIM card out of the camera behind Charlie Kirk, is actually related to the defense attorney, one of the defense attorneys for Tyler Robinson. And they're saying that one of the defense attorneys was actually on the campus the day that everything happened, and it's on camera.
So I didn't know this, or if I did, I missed it. But this is now becoming very reminiscent of the Manson stuff. If you go back and read the book, Tom O'Neill, that he wrote on the MK, like it was a lot of that stuff where the defense attorney was connected. Like it just started to feel like a movie script,
right?
And that's why they're all connected. Because wow, that's if this stuff is true, this is pretty. It should make you reevaluate what really happened that day.
Yeah,
like is this guy on an island somewhere? Is he, is he really gone? I don't know. This is the sort of stuff that should make you reconsider what really happened, because this just shouldn't be. If we're doing a real investigation, how do you get the defense attorney connected over here and this military guy? Isn't it too much?
Yeah, and for those of you that don't remember, Tyler Robinson wasn't able to choose his own defense attorney. The prosecution was, or the judge was rather, which is still could be considered part of the prosecution, depending on how you look at it. The judge was able to choose his attorneys or his lawyers for him.
Ooh, that's hard to process.
Yeah,
that's what we just went through. I don't know if you probably caught it in the beginning of that tweet. He focused a lot on Navy. These guys, right? Naval. Well, if we go back through all the McCoy stuff, how many times did that come up? Where I said naval admiral, naval this. Jack Posobiec, I think, if I'm not mistaken, was a naval intelligence officer. If I'm not mistaken. I don't know now if I should have not said that, and all of a sudden there's going to be...
No, I think he's tied. Somebody else was telling me the other day that he's tied to. Let's see.
So I just think like it's weird how much naval intelligence sort of stuff comes up.
Is Jack Posobiec ex-military? Yes, Jack Posobiec. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Oh, I don't know. I thought it was Posobiec, but I don't
Posobiec.
know.
Let's just go with Posobiec. Jack Posobiec is a U.S. military veteran. He served in the United States Naval Reserve as an intelligence officer.
Okay, so yeah.
He enlisted in 2010 and served until 2017. He reached the rank, you ready for this, of lieutenant.
Oh, come on. That I didn't know, or I forgot. Wow.
But it was lieutenant junior grade while in the Navy Reserve, which is an officer rank. During his service, he deployed for roughly 10 months at Guantanamo Bay Naval Base and also worked at the Office of Naval Intelligence in various intelligence roles. As he sits up there, he holds what they call it, a rosary. Yeah. After every event, he holds up a rosary. I don't know, bro. I don't.
So why that came to mind is, again, back to pattern recognition. Why are we seeing a lot of that with these kind of people? These people that feel like there might be more than meets the eye, and then that naval intelligence, it's so kind of what I've always suspected. The awakening I had many years ago was, notice how we make sure to give the CIA a bad rap. I think that's done intentional, because now it's like, well, he's not CIA. He's like there's like good guy and bad guy intelligence. CIA, bad guy. Oh, if you found out Didi was CIA, that's it. But if he's naval intelligence, it's good.
Better.
Yeah, it's better. See, and I feel like that's on purpose. Like, because I used to be that guy that was all CIA. And then I started thinking, no, I'm getting duped by this, because now I'm only thinking CIA. And then if it's anything else, I'm thinking, oh, well, they're not CIA, And like, I think that's what it is. It's they've created this CIA that's so bad, and they're willing to even sell it to CIA. You won't get banned if you say the CIA killed JFK.
All right.
They want you now saying that, because then you focus over here. But why don't we look at, hey, if a guy is to me, intelligence should be problematic, not which division of intelligence, right? Whether it's FBI intelligence, naval intelligence, Army, CIA, NSA, how do they get a pass? Like intelligence.
And Navy, is Navy considered military, or is it considered separate? I'm saying that because AI is telling me Jack Posobiec is ex-military and served as a Navy intelligence officer.
I don't want to speak in error then, because that's
as if it's like some sort of different, like it's a branch off or something, Let me see.
Because it feels like there's the institution and then the branches underneath: Air Force, Army, Marine Corps, etc. But
exactly, that's the way I would think about it. And what does intelligence mean anyways? Yes, there's a difference. Military, this is a broad umbrella term, exists in every branch. It means an officer whose job is intelligence work within the U.S. military. That's what military intelligence officer means. Navy intelligence is commissioned officer in the U.S. Navy, active or reserve. Focuses on enemy fleets, terrorist networks, foreign military capabilities, geopolitics, affecting U.S. naval operations. And military intelligence officer, Army intelligence officer, okay. So it's an overarching. So it could fall under Navy, falls under military, but it also consists of other types of intelligence officers, including Marine Corps, Army, Air Force, and Space Force.
Yeah, I just think if you wanted us to trust the influencer class, this should be disqualifying, not because that makes them a bad person. They're an extension of the government. So if I'm relying on my influencer class to get to the truth, that's where I start to get suspicious. Like I said, doesn't mean bad, doesn't mean anything. It just means sometimes in life things disqualify you, right? It's just that simple. It's not something on your character. It's just something in your past. And yet we don't see that. Remember Sean Ryan when I was on? You were
right. Yeah.
And what did I tell you about? And then your mind was blown because you're like, holy cow, he's this private CIA. And I'm like, see? Like,
there's no such thing as ex-CIA.
It's an oxymoron.
All right.
And so why isn't ex-naval intelligence an oxymoron? It's only ex-CIA. Like,
that's a very good point, which goes to your original point. We're led to believe that about just CIA, but we should be applying the same logic to these other terms as well, because once you're probably always, and it actually goes to my live that I did earlier today, because you notice that quote unquote ex-military, they're about getting to the truth until people are implicating that the military probably played a role in the cover-up. Then all of a sudden their brains just can't process it, or they're telling us that they can't process it, and they're saying that that's not possible.
Come on, what does that tell you? Like, are they about getting to the truth, or are they about, remember the term we talked about, limited hangout? Limiting the truth, right? That was why I was explaining how important that term is to understand, because that's now another example of that. It's look like we're truth tellers until push comes to shove, and then we got to herd you in this direction, over here in this safe direction. And so for me, it just becomes difficult. Everywhere I look, I'm like, why is it these guys that used to be connected, and now what? They just got out, and they're anti-establishment,
right?
You know, and this all ties in because in the McCoy stuff, we saw naval. And granted, it didn't say intelligence because it was even higher than that. It was captain, it was admiral.
Right.
And in the one case, just to recap, what was he? Psychological warfare.
Yeah,
that sounds
Assistant Chief of Staff for Psychological Warfare. Let me look up the ranks. What are the ranks?
Oh, there's so many more than you think. That's why it gets a little tricky. Like, it's not just a couple ranks.
Oh, really? They just do these things.
Yeah, that's why I didn't want to misspeak on like, is captain the highest, because there's like different versions with. I mean, I feel like it's safer to be like, these guys are clearly in like the top 10% of the hierarchy. You know?
Yeah, but I can tell you this.
Like admiral is obviously high, like near the top.
So I'm trying to what time I use since the higher than, let me see, is the higher the number, the higher the rank, or vice versa?
That's a good question.
Yes, higher number equals higher rank. So admirable is the top,
like the CEO.
Yeah, let me show you what I see.
That's for me. That's an easy way to think of it. CEO, CFO, you know, and I start to.
Let me see. It's not pulling up, but it's saying here: junior officers, ensign, lieutenant, junior grade, and lieutenant. That's one section. The second section is mid-grade officers, which is 4 and 5. That's lieutenant commander, and then there's commander. Then there's another section called senior officers, where there's only captain. Navy captain, yes. Army colonel. And then there's flag officers, which are all admirals. Rear. Yeah, you're right. It's a lot of ranks.
And we had one of the rear admirals in our story, if you remember. I don't remember if that was an uncle, but I think one or two had the rank of rear admiral in the Navy.
Richard Flower, the father-in-law.
He was the rear admiral? Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty high ranking, dude. Like, that's really, really high ranking.
And at that level, don't you think you have major trust? Which is why it's not a stretch to think they would say, hey, who you got in your family? Someone have potential? Do you have a kid that's standing out scholastically, maybe good in sports, like someone showing promise? And they have a different definition of promise than we do. You know? And so it just does not feel far. And back to the book outlines all of this. So it's not just some theory. And by the way, the guy that wrote the book died of natural causes shortly after, David McGowan. He was like a track runner. He was in great shape, and then he just died in his 50s.
Oh, dang.
Don't know what happened, but that was what I read somewhere.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that was supposed to get out. You know, he went on his own and uncovered this stuff because that changed your lens now. Because of his book, look at how we now view this stuff. That's why I think his book was so problematic to the establishment. It wasn't just the people he exposed. It was much bigger than that. It created a whole new way of us looking at these celebrities because now you dig into their parents.
Right.
No one ever did in the past,
Which reminds me of Dan Bongino. Have you heard about the Dan Bongino news?
I don't think so. I mean, I know who he is, but haven't heard anything.
So you know who he is? I mean, do you know what he's been doing? Like, he's a podcaster, but he's since joined the Trump administration.
Yeah, he was on Rumble. Then they got him for the FBI or something.
Yeah, he's stepping down.
Oh, stepping down. I mean, something's going on, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. And I think that's important in this conversation because I find it interesting because he called himself a friend of Charlie Kirk. And it wasn't until all of this took place, and since all of this has been taking place, and most people, from what I can see, has not been buying the quote-unquote Fed slop, I find it to be interesting timing that this is when Dan Bongino has stepped down, quote-unquote stepped down. And a lot of people have speculated, and I'm going to speculate as well, that I believe it's because he's not happy. And he's refusing to be a part of the quote-unquote cover-up or whatever's going on around this Charlie Kirk incident. I don't think he wants to play a role in it.
Can I speculate if you don't mind?
Yeah.
Because I see it differently. But again, it's pure speculation. I could be wrong. I don't think he's stepping down. I think they're transitioning him into a new role. They're going to build him up as a truth teller. And now he's going to be the new arbiter of truth on a lot of this stuff. And we're going to fall for it because he's remember how I said there's good there's good not politicians, there's good government guy. He's going to be the good one. He's going to be built up as, then he's going to write a book because these guys don't write books, and it's going to have a bunch of truths in it. And then we're all going to run with that. Now we're going to listen to his podcast. Like, man, did you see what Dan Bongino said about the Kirk investigation? And we're going to go, yeah. And I could be wrong, but I like saying this on video because I hold myself accountable, and we'll see how this ages. But that's where I see this going. I see him, being some kind of new truth teller, but it's really just going to be another limited hangout. And I don't think he's stepping down at all. They just found a more effective role for him. On paper, of course, he's stepped down. He's not going to have that role, but you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's how we said it's an oxymoron when someone's ex-CIA. Why wouldn't that apply to Dan Bongino?
That's actually a really good point.
They make these people likable. They're wrestling characters. There's baby faces and heels. They're going to make Dan Bongino a baby face. And then the, quote, smart people are going to, get behind him. Because it's like what he said. He called out the left. We're going to start to get into that nonsense too. And you're just going to be, oh, yeah, I like what he's saying. And he is going to say truths. Because if he doesn't say any truths, he has no credibility. So out the gate, he's going to have to give you stuff that we didn't get before. Because that's what's going to get you to go, that's my guy. That guy is telling the truth. And then followed by that, it's going to be all the nonsense. He'll be the new gatekeeper of this information. He'll be hurting us in the direction they want to hurt us in. So I don't see them staining his name. I see the influencer class getting really behind this guy and then his show is going to go viral somehow. And like I said,
because he has insider knowledge.
He's another Sean Ryan.
That's actually good.
But they're hurting us in the direction they want. And give Dan Bongino credit. He's effective at it. I can see why people would he's an effective presenter. The way he's this I'm badass Dan Bongino, I'm this, I'm this, I was Secret Service. It works,
because it gives him a level of quote unquote expertise.
What is he an expert in? He's a government stooge.
Right.
I don't need to be respectful of these people. They're all the same. They're not. Why isn't the country getting better if all these guys are so great?
That's a fact.
Oh, it's the left, right? Like I always have to hear, it's the right. No, it's neither. It's this infrastructure, this apparatus that they have set up here is the problem. And I think maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I think Dan Bongino would be no different than John Smith or anyone else, right? But we'll see,
Right. And it's also interesting because Trump, for an extended period of time, people was calling Trump the no new war president. Look at what's happening now. We just bombed Nigeria? Niger?
I thought it was Niger, but I could be wrong. Yeah, I don't think it was Nigeria, but I might be wrong. Either way,
it's one of them.
A country.
Yeah, I don't think it was Nigeria either. Venezuela, we got all this different stuff going, and they tell us why they're doing it, but some of us that's been watching this stuff long enough, we know that it's other stuff that could be going on.
We live in a contrarian, upside-down world. When Trump won, everyone said that our finance guys don't buy the war stocks because he's anti-war. So you know what I did? I bought every war stock. Every single one's a record high. And it's a record high. Every day is a new record high. I'm getting alerts on my phone. Raytheon, new record high, but I just got that yesterday. Tomorrow it's going to be blocking. So this is what I mean. Stay out of this nonsense of left and right, and Trump is this, and Biden is that. Go by the facts. All I did was the opposite. I didn't read any charts. I didn't watch CNBC. I'm not Harvard educated. I went, okay, I know that's nonsense because that's never how it works. So I brought up all the war stocks. Anyone right now can look them up. Everyone is a record high. I'm not exaggerating. Everyone is through the roof. They've increased their dividend. They're all through the roof. How is that a non? Now, if don't you think the people in the know, if he was truly anti-war, the stocks would have sunk? Isn't it that simple? Like,
Right.
why would the stocks all be going? Because he's not. The people in the know this. They know you're getting worked. Again, it's pro wrestling. You're getting worked by Vince McMahon. By the way, Vince McMahon is Donald Trump's best friend. I always think that's odd that no one talks about that.
Which, by the way, Vince McMahon, for those of you don't know, got accused, and I believe it was proven that he was having his own version of the freak-offs, which isn't surprising to me because that's very common behind the scenes. It's not a shocker. It's a shocker, and it's a huge story when the powers that be want it to be a huge story. For whatever reason, they're choosing to take down their current puppet.
Yeah, because Ari Emanuel wanted his company.
Who?
Ari Emanuel. Do you know who Ari Emanuel is?
No.
He's one of the most powerful guys in the world. He wears a tiny hat. He's Rahm Emanuel's brother. If you know who Rahm Emanuel is, Rahm Emanuel was basically running the Obama administration. They're one of the most powerful tiny hat families. Ari Emanuel runs Hollywood.
Like the Adelsons?
Oh, yeah, I would definitely put the Emanuels up there. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And they run UFC and WWE now, Ari. And
UFC?
Yeah. Look at who runs TKO. It's Ari. And he has a whole crew, right? He's not the sole owner because, they're a company.
Right.
Ari's company used to be called Endeavor. Then it became WME and a whole thing. Ari is so crazy within the industry. They had to make a TV show telling us about how bad he is called Entourage. And the character on it was Ari. And it's allegedly based on Ari Emanuel. And it was an HBO show. So, that's what I mean. That's why I thought the Vince McMahon thing was weird when it happened. Because then, his company's gone. Vince had to step down. I'm not saying Vince was innocent. I'm just saying it could be like you said. That's why it was go time.
Right. It was
Yeah. I mean, Vince had been around since the 60s or 70s, and they only got him now. It would be time for you to go down a notch, just like Trump with the Epstein stuff. It's time for you to, come down a notch. Like they do this a lot. But anyway, we've gone so far off the. I hope I can steer the ship back because we do have a little bit more.
Okay.
Are we okay to get into on Erica's side because some really interesting stuff there. Got it. So we have Lori, that's Erica's mother, and her father is Joseph Abbas, Abbas. And then her mother's Angie. One thing I want to mention about Joseph, he's from Syria. And I saw a lot of people on Twitter always saying that Erica's Jewish. And on this Abbas side, they found that she's Jewish. I haven't seen that. I'm not saying they're wrong, but I do get worried that sometimes they do this stuff to muddy the waters. Like they put stuff out there that they know isn't true. From the obituaries, they're all listed as Catholic. So I can only go by that. You know what I mean? I like to use obituaries because if it's saying, a Catholic service, they're a part of Immaculate Conception, then that to me is all we have. So I just wanted to put it out there because I've seen a lot of people say this part of her family is Jewish. And because he's from Syria, that means Jewish. I'm not seeing that at all. To me, it looks like a Catholic family. So we have Joseph Abbas is the father. The mother was Angie. They divorced in 1969. Where it starts to get a little more interesting is Joseph's father was named Mason. He was a salesman from Syria. He had 7 kids. He dies in his early 40s. And then we're going to look now at Joseph's brothers, which would be Lori's uncles. One uncle is named Henry. He's a corporal, U.S. Army, served World War II Air Force. The other brother is Mitchell. He was a sergeant in the U.S. Army. The brother-in-law was Marvin. I couldn't find rank, so it's possible he was just regular U.S. Army, which to me would be nothing eye-opening. Like we said earlier, that's fine. A lot of people join the military, do 4 years, and that's it. There was an uncle named Frank. He died at 21 in World War II over in the Philippines. There's an aunt named Josephine, which would be the mother's sister. She served in the Pentagon with the Navy. And there's actually the main event here, which is the grandfather. So let's talk about him. And Didi, I don't know if you remember, I sent you some stuff on him. His name was Carl.
Yeah.
I'm just pulling up the exact. Okay. So this would be Erica's grandfather, and this is Kent's father. His name was Carl Kenneth Francevy. He was a captain in the U.S. Army, and he moved up the ranks what looked unusually quick. He was awarded a Silver and Bronze Star from World War II. He then served in the Korean War. He was a lieutenant in what's called the Engineer Corps at the Army base in Virginia. He was knighted by Carl Gustaf, the King of Sweden. And they said they knighted him because he was, quote, furthering Swedish and American relations.
What does it mean to knight someone? Do you know?
No, I just know that to me it means you're pretty connected because I don't think, the mailman gets knighted.
All right.
Like the guy down the street isn't getting that. So that's usually.
To be knighted means a person is formally honored by a monarch, usually the British king or queen, and given the right to use the title sir or dame for women before their name.
And in this case,
official recognition for extraordinary service or achievement.
And in this case, it was the king that did it, the king of Sweden. You know, it seems like a strange reason because it says to further Swedish and American relations. When were they so bad?
All right.
I don't know. Did we really need a guy to get knighted to fix America and Sweden's problems? I guess. Or it's just he's connected.
Or to just improve it, maybe.
Maybe, to be fair. I think that's, yeah.
Yeah.
He was the which this sounds masonry to me, but I'm not sure. He was the Grand Chief of the Independent Order of Vikings from 1977 to 1979.
Who? Okay, hold on. Somebody had this title. I thought this was Erica's father, Erica's grandfather.
That's who we're speaking of now, which is her father's father.
Okay, so this is not Roy. Okay.
No, McCoy,
that's why I'm confused. Yes, I knew I covered this in the video already. Yes, I'm with you now.
Okay, and then I don't know. This is kind of something. So we understand his background, right? All military.
Yeah.
He then gets like a top position with American Banknote Company, and you're gonna love what he was there to do. Print the
IDs or something IDs.
No, the lottery. Yeah, he's according to the article that's featured on him, and I'll send you that screenshot so we can put in the video. This is how it's worded. He printed the U.S. Illinois state lottery tickets. It's a 1974 newspaper article featuring him.
Oh, I don't know if I knew that. So he didn't print out IDs or anything like that.
Well, he may have also. I'm only going by what I found in newspaper articles, so I can't say that's everything, right? Because other things could be out. Like I said earlier, I just try and use these articles so then it feels like that's the source of truth. Like we're just reporting what local papers reported. But yeah, there very well could be more.
Okay.
But how do you get that position out of what's his banking background?
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know what's very interesting that he had this lottery position? Like I said, he was printing the tickets and it all involved in like running the state lottery. Let me make sure I get the name right. Erica's great grandmother. So Lori's grandmother was named Loretta. She's arrested in 1941 on lottery fraud. That's just a strange coincidence. That doesn't mean anything. I'm just saying it's a strange.
So Loretta, who is
unrelated to this guy, because it's on Lori's side, but it was just a funny coincidence to me that that's just, this guy's doing the lottery tickets and then, a different point in time, someone else in the family. That's all I'm saying. Just, I don't know. It feels noteworthy.
Does it have the years that each happened?
Yeah. And it wasn't, because she's older. So she was 1941, and he's 1974.
Okay.
So I wasn't trying to imply any connection other than, again, just
a pattern. If there's a pattern, it's worth at least noting.
That's all. Just a weird coincidence because I searched her name in the papers and then sure enough comes up. She was doing like this lottery fraud. She, I think, pleaded guilty and had to pay a fine. And it wasn't like she was stealing millions or anything, but it was enough to get arrested.
Right.
So it's not like she just stole a scratch off. It was clearly more than that. And yeah, it just seems like this grandfather, I think it's safe to say pretty connected. Knighted, high position with this bank company, Illinois state lottery ticket. That's typically someone that's trustworthy, I would think, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So, and then, they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. His father. So right now we're talking about Erica's grandfather, who was Carl Kenneth. Well, his father was a sergeant in the military.
Oh my gosh. What's his name?
Carl F. And I'm trying to find out what the F might have been Francis.
Yeah.
So the guy we talked about was Carl Kenneth. That was the first Erica's grandfather. And then the great grandfather, which is this guy's father, I believe is Carl Francis Francevy. So he's a sergeant in the military. He dies in 1970, and he was a member of the Harold Lodge number 13 Viking Club, Gotha Lodge number 14, and Swedish American Athletic Vestmolands Club. I've not done research on those clubs.
I'm going to look into those clubs, man, because that sounded very Freemasonic-like to me.
They could also just be the local club where guys have bars and play pool. Have drinks and play pool. I have no idea.
Right.
But again, I do think.
But for it to be mentioned though like that, I just feel like it's a little bit more than just the country club,
You're right, because it's mentioned in an obituary. Right. So it doesn't have to be important.
Yeah.
Or they wouldn't mention. So yeah, and back to pattern. Well, his father had similar things in the obit, like we just talked about. So usually that stays in the family if it is a masonry lodge type of thing. Yeah. So I think that covers it for Lori's. Oh, Carl's wife died at 19. Why I bring that up is, and maybe it was just people weren't healthy back then. There's a lot of young deaths in this family.
Yeah.
There's in Erica's family, meaning like her elder family, like her grandparents level family. There's a lot of young deaths. A lot of 19, 20, 10-year-old, like I have no idea what happened because the papers, of course, don't say. It just says this person died, but there's more than one.
I don't know why. I feel like I covered this, the age, the young death. I think the reason why I don't remember it as much is because it was in the month of September. It was like maybe 2 weeks after everything happened. I started covering and digging into Erica Kirk's family's background, and I was like, man, there's a lot of people dying young.
A lot. Maybe for another video, I could put something together for this. In the interest of time, I didn't, but it was just something I noticed. I didn't like take notes of all the young deaths, but I just saw as I was going through obituaries. And you know that website, I think it's called Find a Grave. They try and like lump all the family members together. You start seeing it there too, where you see these differences in birth and death dates. You're going, wait, this is 10 years. This is like, it could just be luck of the draw too. That's why I want to be very clear. I don't know what any of this means other than it's out there. That's all I can say. What it means, I have no idea. I want to stay on Erica's family. A couple other things I saw. So according to the divorce certificate that I found, Erica's parents' marriage officially ends on January 7th, 1990. You know, Erica was born November 1988. That's pretty tight. To like, you know, the divorce probably like shortly after she was born, because that's when the letter from the court happens, which means they're divorced usually prior, right? Like meaning they obviously separated or whatever. And now the court is officially stamping it as of, what did I say? January 7th, 1990. So this jumped out to me for two reasons. One, like I said, Erica was born in 1988. Secondly, in our first video, I talked about how Kent, Erica's father, wrote a book in 1992. So 1992 is 2 years after the divorce. He thanks his wife, Lori, and he doesn't mention Erica.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
I don't know. Did he write the book before the divorce and then just didn't think to edit that? The book was released in 92. That doesn't mean he wrote it in 92, but it was released in 92, and that is in the book. He
never mentions his own daughter.
I did a control find on Erica. Nothing comes up. I do a control find on Lori, and it comes up, thank you to my wife, Lori. This book couldn't have been done without you.
Yeah, I remember we covered this before. That's odd to me.
And I don't know what else to call that.
Maybe, I mean, I like just being devil's advocate. Maybe, like you said, he started the book before they had her.
Could be.
And maybe he just never corrected it or made any adjustment. But I would imagine if you've become a parent since that point, unless it's impossible for you to edit the book and it's already went out, then I would imagine as a parent, you would feature your daughter in there somewhere, you know?
It jumped out to me because I read a lot of books, and these authors almost virtue signal their kid in the book. You know what I mean? Where it's just like endless of, without my 2-year-old, I could have never done this. Like my life. I mean, so that's why it's unique. You just don't see this from a parent who writes a book. And you generally don't see them leaving the divorced wife in there as wife. They just take it out. Mm-hmm. They don't say they hate the ex. They just don't mention mention the ex. Maybe they had a healthy divorce. Maybe that, or maybe for his image. So there's a lot of plausible reasons. But what's implausible is to say this is normal. I don't think you could just blanketly be like, hey, nothing to see here. I think that's noteworthy to say. He didn't mention either of that. She also kept the name to this day. Isn't she still Lori Franceville?
Yep.
Even though she has a new husband, I believe.
Yep. So, well, I don't know if she remarried, but she definitely still has the same last name.
In a relation, yeah. So she kept it. So yeah, maybe it's just very amicable, and that's that. I don't know, but that jumped out to me. I guess the last thing would be, we have the Colvitts. I'm not exactly sure which one's a brother and which one's a cousin, but also I'll just give the names. We have Kurt Colvitt and Robert Colvitt, and they're lieutenant colonels in the Army. And one of them, I believe 2 years ago, was doing some operations in Romania, and that's per newspaper articles. I don't remember exactly what they were doing, but, it's always window dressed the same way, like helping people and, all these amazing, great things. So
right.
I think one's the brother, one's the cousin. I don't follow Andrew enough. Maybe he has mentioned this, so that's why I don't want to say, oh, he's never mentioned that. He very well may have, like on Veterans Day, maybe he honors these two. But we're just in the turning point orbit. I feel like we're seeing an extraordinary number of high-ranking military. I guess would be my conclusion of all of this. And I'm saying I don't know what to make of it. I'm not saying I know. I'm saying I really don't know. Like, it leaves you perplexed. Like, what? Is it all coincidence? I feel like that would be the biggest conspiracy theory, to be like, nope, just a coincidence. They're all patriots, and I don't think it's that. Is it nefarious either? I don't know. Like, it may not be either. That's
my opinion is that it's not a coincidence. I mean, I'm looking on this sheet, like I have so many names. Like when you got all these connections, and these are not just members. I think all these names you see, only one of them is probably just regular military, regular Army member. The rest of them seem to be corporal, lieutenant, sergeant, captain, admiral, something. That's weird. And to me, it bypasses the point of just coincidence. And it seems to me that either TPUSA has been infiltrated and maybe Charlie found out about it, or Charlie knew about this from the jump.
Yeah, I think when you look at this and you look at what we've uncovered in prior videos, if we were betting on which is most probable, it would almost be like this is the military operation, the starting of Turning Point, the running of Turning Point, the hurting people, hurting young people in the what did we say earlier, the left versus right. Turning Point never told you not to vote. Turning Point
in fact, they encourage you to vote for the right.
For the right. So how is that different than some leftist group that tells you vote for the left?
Instead of telling you what's really going on, that it's all the political binary is all a hoax, so to speak.
So it feels like that's a possibility that, it was spun up as a military operation. I mean, how else is a 17-year-old, he might have literally turned 18 at the time of year one, running this company?
Chief of Staff, right.
No, I mean, Charlie. Remember, that was 2012, so he was 18.
That's right.
So that's
and how does Mikey McCoy, or why would Mikey McCoy at 18 years old become the Chief of Staff?
Same thing. Yeah, right, because he's following that Charlie pattern. There were these kids. So you can't have it both ways. If you want to tell me, hey, all the stuff we uncovered in the audit, these guys didn't know, then how about we stop putting teenagers running companies? I don't know. That doesn't seem like a crazy thought. Maybe it should be guys that know how to find this stuff and know how to run, because it's really convenient that we get it. Well, Charlie just didn't know because he never ran a finance. I think someone was trying to say that. So then let's learn from this. Right. We're not going to learn from this. Before you know it, Nick Fuentes, some kid will be running something, and the next, there's Brian, what's his name? Brillin Hollandland. You see, there's like a new Charlie Kirk.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I don't know his name. But
something like Brylan, or he'll be running something. Not because. So we're just going to keep this going. And maybe from the beginning, it was just an operation. It was created. They installed a kid that was speaking what they wanted him to speak. Remember, economic freedom was how it started. There was no Jesus. There was nothing about voting. There was nothing about Republican. And boy, all of a sudden, when the money came in, did this whole narrative shift of what the real mission of Turning Point was.
Exactly.
Hard to think, that Charlie didn't know of any of this stuff. Who are we to say? Because he's no longer here to defend himself. But could you really not know any of this?
I personally find it hard to believe. Charlie Kirk came off as very well read, very aware, but when it comes to simple, like not even the complex things, simple self-reflection of your own organization, maybe you got an argument that he wouldn't know about the finances. Maybe they can slip that through the cracks because it gets so complex when your organization is that massive. That's fair. But to notice that everybody's military, and to notice that what the organization sort of started out to be, there's this huge pivot. I don't know. Like I don't want to speculate too much into that. I'm just going to say, from my perspective, it's clear to me that Charlie Kirk knew more than what some people was willing to give him credit, for lack of a better term. I think he knew more than what we realized.
Yeah, and maybe that's why there's a push to undermine our first video and control that narrative, because that first video makes it hard to think he didn't know anything, because there's just so much. I mean, it's a 2-hour video of just receipt after receipt. So if that's problematic, well, let's shift that narrative into a new narrative and make Jake Hoffman the bad guy and make all these people the bad guy, which I'm not saying they aren't, but that's really a convenient way to make one guy, like we said in wrestling, the baby face, which is Charlie, and then make all these guys the heels. And that's what I feel like has now happened, right? It's okay to blast Hoffman and Stacey Sheridan and Justin Olsen, all these names, but Charlie didn't know. I don't know. Maybe it's a new point, because like I said, he's gone anyway. So because he can't defend himself, it may not matter. I just keep leaving myself wondering, like, why is there such an effort to say he didn't know? Because we have no proof either way. So if we don't have proof that he did know, how do you have proof he didn't know?
Exactly. Well, what they point to, they'd say, well, he put out the Doge audit. Clearly he didn't know about these things. Well,
and the guy he chose was doing this stuff as well. Remember, we showed in the first video, Justin Schreif.
Right.
So the guy he puts in charge was also benefiting from that insider. I don't know about you, man. I'm at least going to look up the guy I'm putting in charge of this just to make sure he's clean.
Yeah. At the very least, I'd like to know, Charlie, how did you vet these people? Like, where did these people come from? Did someone recommend them to you, or what? How did you make the decision to hire this person for this? That's what I would have wanted to know. And I think this would have made more sense, because, again, when you got over 25 people affiliated with as high ranking, it's just weird. It's just too weird for me, And
I don't know why you wouldn't use an external. So if I'm really this worried, where's all my money going? I'm so skeptical of the internal folks, I'm going to find an external. whether that's someone from one of the big four auditing firms. Obviously, I'm rich enough, I can afford any person to look into this, and they would have done what I did. But an internal would already be compromised.
Right.
It just seems strange that I would I tell me, if I'm running a company and I'm not worried, I am not choosing someone in the company. Do you bite the hand that feeds you? You typically don't. I know there's exceptions, and everyone, there's always outliers, but generally speaking, you don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Yeah, that's a great point, though.
That's why I was always harping on Justin Streifert. Just that email didn't make sense to me. That just a guy within the got like you just wouldn't do it.
You're
that
so concerned that you kept it in house. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. And the person that you replaced him with, or the person that was replaced, that being Tyler Boyer, he was moved out of that position, but he stayed within the organization. I don't know. Maybe that would have changed eventually. Yeah, I don't know.
Is this? Yeah, and part of me doesn't mean to be so hard on someone that's not here, because it is unfair when you can't defend yourself. But part of me feels like we have to be, because if we're trying to seek the truth on this, it's unavoidable, because things just don't make sense as to how this was handled. The timing is odd too. September, what was it? The 2nd? Like
September the 10th. I mean, September the 10th. Yeah, the day before 9/11.
No, I'm saying when he sent the email. I don't think it was the day before.
Yes, it was 6 days before.
Yeah, you wonder if that's even a real email, or if that's just another strategy to make him a babyface.
Yeah. Well, remember, Candace Owens was the first person to share it. So either she would be in on it, or the person that sent it to her would lead her to believe, because she got a Turning Point USA source, would lead her to believe that there was some sort of audit going on.
Yeah, and I don't think she made this email in Photoshop. But if you know anything about forwarding emails, there's tricky ways you can make something look like an email was sent. First of all, I want to be I'm not saying that happened. I'm just saying very crazy timing. Almost like fits the narrative too perfect. Because then what do we do? Because that's why they took out Charlie, because of that email. I'm not buying that, even if the email is true that's what happened. Mm-hmm. You're going to take out a guy over that email? That, to me, in a court of law, is not strong enough evidence for motive. Everyone says it is strong enough, so maybe I'm the weird one. I just never felt like that email was strong enough to take a guy out.
Well, maybe it was the email, and give yourself more credit here. Maybe it's the email in conjunction with what the audit itself would have found, right? Because when I had George Webb on, he was saying, if you do this Doge audit, which to your credit, one has been done already, then certain people probably going to be going to jail.
True. But because they're all friends with him, wouldn't it have just been easier to just talk him out of it? Like, was he really not? You don't think they could have just talked him out of this thing?
Well, a Doge audit will lead to other questions about, such as what, because remember, one of the biggest questions they was asking was, where's the money coming from? Charlie allegedly didn't even know where the money was coming from. And he had become concerned about who was donating and why they were donating such huge dollars. And what I speculated was maybe that was part of the reason he was suspicious, why certain people felt compelled to make certain demands from him, because they had anonymously donated and kept his organization afloat.
That's fair. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Diddy got a podcast.